When did you realize that social media could like be a job? And like when did you start your relationship with social media as like an industry?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very into social media and, you know, I love Twitter, all that. And I think I just started to see like the impact that brands were having, on social media. Like the social media team is kind of the voice of the brand, the forefront of the brand. And I kept seeing that and thinking like, wow, that sounds like such a fun job. I would love to do that. So I think just like being a part of social and seeing what brands were doing really got me interested in doing that. Yeah.
Totally. Thank you so much for sharing. Georgia, I would love to know a little bit about how you came to be in the role that you're in today.
Yeah, so kind of similar. I was a communication and media major in college, and then from there, I kind of had internships throughout college in social media, and then out of college, I worked at an agency for a couple months, and then I decided I kind of wanted to switch into something more in-house and a little more creative. So then I wanted to work for a brand, and then kind of went on LinkedIn and I found Wow and interviewed with them and just loved kind of their creative voice. And then now I've been there for about 6 months. So yeah.
Totally. And could you really quickly, just for some people in the room who might not know, explain the difference between in-house and agency work?
Yeah. So corporations or companies, they can either hire people within their own company to run their social media. So that's what I do now. So I work for and produce their content and get content from them. Or they can hire an agency. So it's kind of like a third party kind of way to do it. So they hire an agency who can take their content and post on social media for them, or, have photographers and videographers that they hire for that company and create content. But yeah.
Totally. And in your experience, since you have worked in both, do you have a personal preference? And if so, why?
Personally, I like working in-house way better. I think you get to know the brand really, really well. Also, I think creating content is something that I love, and having a creative voice. And when you work for an agency, you can have multiple clients, and you don't get as much creative agency with them. They kind of give you what they want, and then you have to produce that. So for me personally, it just works better to be in-house.
Totally. Neely, I see you nodding. Do you agree with that assessment of enjoying in-house work?
Yeah, I definitely do, especially like if you're really passionate about a brand. Like I'm really passionate about Crunchyroll, so I love just being able to like focus on that instead of a bunch of different clients.
Mm-hmm. Totally, for sure. Yeah, I really love hearing about, your personal identity and how it ties in with the brand and building a relationship with a company and also evolving along with social media. And a little bit along that line, I would love maybe Georgia, could you describe what a typical day or like a typical week looks like for you?
Yeah, so I would say my morning is kind of like scrolling through anything that came in overnight. Whether that's people asking us questions or just people tagging us in content, that kind of thing. So I would start with that, and then kind of work on various projects. Sometimes it's making content for the next month, or if we have something that kind of pops up during the week that we want to do on social, would be kind of working on that. And then kind of meetings throughout the day, working with people in the company, seeing how we can help them through marketing. But yeah, that's about a typical
Totally.
day.
And how big is your team?
There's four of us right now, about to be five, but yeah.
Nice. Neely, does your week like sound similar to that or are there differences?
Definitely sounds very similar. For the store, we have new products every day, so I have to log on, see what's new, and then work that into my calendar, work that into my schedule. I would say majority of my day is spent scheduling posts. I do multiple posts per day, so definitely have to be on top of that, working ahead and whatnot.
Totally. And a little bit along that line, what software do you use to like what scheduling tools do you use? What like project planning tools do you find that's like pretty common in the industry?
I use Social Bakers, also known as Amplify, to schedule all of my posts. I also will use like Facebook Creator Studio, that lets you like tag a product in your post. So that's what I use for scheduling. As for project management, I use Rike a lot. Everyone across the company uses Rike. Sometimes I use Asana, and those are both very useful.
Totally. Georgia, is that the same for you, or do you use something different?
I use Sprout Social. That's been really helpful. They have a lot of webinars too, which I kind of like try and go to that talk a lot about social media kind of trends, that kind of thing. So that's been helpful. I use a lot of Adobe Suite kind of stuff if I can help out the design team in any way and like help them create things. And then yeah, for project management, we also use Asana.
Totally. I just love hearing about like the different kinds of tech and software that people are using. I feel like it's changing all the time, and I always find it very fascinating. Neely, I feel like you mentioned this like, when you were describing your career journey, but what kinds of obstacles did you personally face when you were looking for your first job or just in your career in general?
Yeah, I think like when I was approaching my graduation, I was applying to tons of PR agencies. I thought, I wanted to work in an agency. Um, and I would say I got rejected a lot. And I did have like a second interview at a company that I really wanted and didn't get it. So, I was feeling a little disheartened by that, but then this job popped up in-house for like a company I love, and I got that job. And so I think it goes to show you might get rejected, but like there's going to be something perfect for you. Um, and then even after that job, the same thing happened. I got rejected by jobs I really wanted, but then Crunchyroll appeared, and that's I'm like really thankful that the other jobs rejected me. So sometimes obstacles are kind of like a blessing too.
Totally. And either of you can take this, but I am getting a question in the chat from Michelle. How do you plan and create a campaign for social media, and how do you aim it for each platform? Georgia, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, so I would say a lot of it comes within our own team. So we kind of have things that we want to highlight on social, or we'll have different events. And then from there, we kind of, determine what time, like what kind of design type we need for each platform, or how we kind of want to portray the event on social. As for aiming it for each platform, I think it's about how you portray your brand voice on each platform. So on Twitter, we try to be really funny, hop on trends, that kind of thing. Kind of same goes for TikTok. So if we have an event that we find is more formal, we probably wouldn't post that on those, or we would post it in a different way. Instagram, obviously, it's a lot of visuals. So we try and use video and photo, and then LinkedIn, having professional voice. So yeah.
Totally. And Neely, do you have anything to add to that before the next question?
I think that's pretty spot on with what I do. I focus more on like products. So I do like a lot of lifestyle shots too. But yeah, the planning kind of comes from like the upper marketing manager. Those like the whole collaboration process is what happens.
Totally. I'm hearing the value of a lot of collaboration, like really staying on trend and just knowing your audience and the platforms really well leads to a lot of success. I have a question for you, Neely, from Elise. The question is, how long did your initial application and rejection cycle go on for, and what did you do to improve your chances of getting a job?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with in between jobs. I would say probably went on for a while because especially for COVID,
Mm.
that made applying to jobs a lot harder, I feel like. But I would say maybe a month or two. I definitely had like interviews at places and, didn't get those. And so what I actually did, I really cracked down on improving my resume and my website. And that did so much for me. Like I had someone professional look at my resume and I tuned it up, and like I feel like that's what got me the job at Crunchyroll. Just like making sure I really improved that, worked really well. And yeah, I do have a website, which I definitely recommend because that shows so much more than your resume. And you can just like put all your past work on there. So yeah, definitely both of those helped me a lot.
Totally. Do you have, I know that it's kind of ironic for me to ask this as a career advisor, but do you have any top tips that you learned during your resume edits?
Um, Definitely. I would say the biggest thing is you want to kind of show evidence that you've done a good job, like pull in numbers or like analytics, like how much did you increase the social following, or how many projects did you work on at once? Like using numbers, I would say recruiters really like that. I would say you need to like brag about yourself and prove to them like why you're a good pick rather than just saying, oh yeah, I did like this. Say like what results it reached.
Totally. Um, I know that we have a lot of wonderful questions coming through in the chat, but I want to throw it back to you, Georgia. Have you experienced any kind of like what challenges have you navigated during your job search? How did COVID impact the industry and your work style? I would love to hear a little bit about that before we move on.
Yeah, so I graduated like last year, so it was right when the pandemic, I didn't go back to school before I graduated, so I was kind of just thrown into the workforce. So it was really hard to be like, oh, I'm going to go and get a job now. But I think it was like a couple months of me going through interview process after interview process and kind of just getting used to like how interviews go. I think I got a lot in my head during that time where I was like putting so much pressure if I would get close to a job to be like, oh, I need to get this. And I
Mm,
think it took a lot for me to just be like, okay, let me actually like have a conversation and treat it like a conversation and then kind of go from there. And that kind of helped me get past like putting a lot of pressure on things and getting really nervous and not
mhm.
being able to communicate in the way that I wanted to. Yeah.
Totally. Effective communication during job interviews can be really challenging. There's a lot of pressure, I think, from both sides to present the company well, but also represent yourself well and accurately. And like you were saying, Neely, like really brag about yourself and prove that you can do the job that you want. I personally, know from experience that it can hurt a lot to get those rejections, especially when the cycle goes on for a really long time. I want to take this moment to plug the fact that I, as a career advisor, do a lot of mock interviews. You can, come to my office and I can pretend to be a recruiter or someone from a company and ask questions back and forth and workshop answers. If any of the participants here wants to do that, I'm always open for appointments. And Claire has a question for the both of you. I know, Neely, that you majored in PR and marketing, and Georgia, your communications and media major. But Claire's question is, what would you suggest is a good major to break into this kind of role? Personally, I am a marketing major currently. Would this work, or do you suggest switching into something else?
I think marketing would definitely work. I think, I don't know, in my experience in social media, it's a lot of more experience based, or if they have the skills that you, or they want the skills that you possess kind of thing,
Mhm.
um, versus like specific majors.
Totally.
Yeah, I would definitely say marketing is great for it. For me, like PR definitely really helped, just like gave me an edge on like how I can make the brand look better, I guess.
Mhm.
But I feel like it's all under the same umbrella. So like marketing, I think would be perfect.
Totally. And while you guys actively both have jobs in social media marketing, I remember Georgia, you mentioned something about webinars and Sprout Social. What do you do to like stay on trend, make sure that you're staying updated on each platform as it changes and grows, especially with like algorithmic shifts? I would love to know how you upskill while actively in the workplace.
Yeah, mine's a lot of like talking to other people. Like webinars is really helpful to just kind of listen to people who have been in this industry longer than me. Seeing people on social media who there's tons of people who are like, this is good content to create, or like, this is how the algorithm's changing, that kind of thing. I have a couple of friends in social media, and it's really nice to kind of talk to them. Like, I've been struggling with this for so long. Like, can you help me? And they
Hmm.
usually have a couple ideas.
Do you have an
Um,
example?
Yeah, so when I first got my job, I think I was like, I need to increase engagement. And I was like, I cannot do it. I don't know what it is. Like, and I think they were telling me, like, you just need to get used to the brand, get used to the voice, and then just plug Reels. I think Instagram and Reels was a huge shift that I was like, I have no vertical video. What do I do? And it was kind of just like me going and taking shots of food and not making it perfect and not being in the back of my head of like, I need to increase engagement. And eventually it kind of just all fell into place. But yeah.
Totally. Neely, I saw you nodding. Do you agree? What responses do you have?
Yeah, I think definitely like seeing what other brands are doing, seeing what works for them has definitely helped me a lot. You know, seeing what doesn't work, like kind of reading people's feedback. You know, I am like a very active user of social media, like I'm always on it. So I feel like I can get a pretty good scope of like trends and like what's hot and like what's working. Um, and yeah, I actually had the same experience with Instagram Reels. I noticed that like that was the big thing and like that really helped the algorithm. So I actually started doing more Reels too. Um, the Instagram algorithm is pretty tricky and you gotta try a bunch of new things to stay on top of that.
Totally. I just want to say thank you so much, you guys, for all these wonderful questions. I'm obsessed with them. Please keep them coming. You know, I can keep asking questions. If you want to know something, you gotta ask. So moving on. Unati asks, do you use all social media platforms for your content, or are you assigned to one specific social media platform that you manage exclusively?
Yeah, I use Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, actually some YouTube, and I'll cross promote on the main Crunchyroll TikTok. So I would say I use all of them.
Yeah, I'm the same. We use all of them.
Cool. Do you actually, is that a pretty common practice that like everybody seems to be a generalist in terms of platforms?
I would say so. Yeah. Like, you know, they each platform kind of has a different audience, but I feel like
Mhm.
brands want you to try them all and utilize them all.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Moving on to another question from Michelle. In your experience, what is the best way to get more engagement, follows, and likes? I've been working in social media for a while, but it can get hard at times to continue the growth. And also, what is the best way to keep track of analytics and growth?
I think a great way to boost engagement, like with your captions, is asking a question or like something really interactive that people want to respond to. I always see the best engagement with things like that. And for me, you know, my job is to sell the product, but I also wanted to incorporate more like interactive, just like fun content that's not selling a product. Like, you know, people will do like pair this with your birth month, something like that. And it
Mhm.
just like really encourages people to comment. Um, so I think definitely like telling people to tag a friend, just getting people to want to interact with your content helps.
Totally. Interactivity is such a challenging metric, I think, to track. How personally in your everyday like work life do you track engagement at all? Is it like daily or daily or weekly? How do you measure growth, especially when, you know, things seem to be changing all the time?
I think we do like monthly kind of, these are the best posts, this is how many followers we got, this is our engagement rate, that kind of thing. For me personally, I'll kind of like pay attention to it in the back of my head, like, oh, that did really well, or that didn't do so well, and then kind of look at like, why didn't it do well? And sometimes it's like, oh, it did, the message didn't get across, or, you know, there was a mistake or whatever, but yeah.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. Neely, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I actually do reporting weekly. You know, I record like follower increase, engagements, impressions, link clicks, and then I, you know, report on like the revenue that I earned. And of course, yeah, I talk about like which post did really well, which promotions performed well, and like if they didn't, why not?
Totally. We're having so many wonderful questions come in through the chat. You guys are wonderful panelists, which make people want to ask questions, and I love that for us. Jasmine is asking, what platforms do you like to use for creating the content for the brand? Do you have a personal favorite? I would also love to know.
So when I mean, just to come up with the content, I use like a Google spreadsheet and I just lay out like every day and I just come up with the content there. But when I'm actually scheduling that content, I do use Social Bakers, which is very easy. I have to come up with the caption and I also have to like create a link, and that can be a lot. So it's great to have a platform that's like really easy. You just click it, what time you're going, and yeah. And I will say, like, for the photos that I'm using, a lot of those come from the vendor. So on the Crunchyroll store, we're selling figures and apparel and whatnot, and oftentimes the vendor will supply those. So as for like content creation, sometimes I'll get a figure and take photos of it just on my phone.
Totally. Nothing wrong with it. The best camera is the one that you have on hand, is something that my old professor used to say, and I keep that in mind all the time. Georgia,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite platform?
Yeah, kind of the same. I have a spreadsheet where I kind of plan out my content. I love TikTok, so I will just save sounds and then I'll be like, oh, we can totally do something with this. And then I'll go and like film on my phone. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of just me planning out content, getting photos for it or getting videos for it.
Yeah, totally. Um, Moving on from content creation to more of like personal practice, what apps, Illustrator, Photoshop, etc., did you have to learn how to use either in school or for a job? Which editing or creation softwares do you end up using the most, or do you find that as a social media manager, you're no longer personally creating content? Is something that I would like to add as an addendum. Which do you end up using the most, or which are most helpful to know for the job application process? And I think I would like to expand this to not only apps, but also Sprout Social, other industry tools like that to track metrics. What do you find has been most useful for your professional and personal growth?
In school, I did take a Photoshop class, which helped immensely. And in my first job, I was doing a lot of graphic design. So I did use Photoshop and Illustrator a lot. I would say now, we have our own team of graphic designers. So if I want something made, I ask them. But I actually do use Photoshop a lot to like edit photos or crop them, or I can quickly just like cut out something if I need to. So I would say I definitely use Photoshop a lot. And I didn't know how to use Social Bakers when I got hired on, but I had someone teach me the ropes. So I wouldn't say like you have to know Sprout Social or Social Bakers before you start. Like someone will train you on that.
Totally. Georgia, what do you have to add?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I use a lot of Photoshop and Lightroom. Lightroom to like edit photos. I do Premiere Pro, that kind of thing. I kind of learned I took a Premiere Pro class in college, but other than that, I kind of just learned Photoshop and Lightroom as I went along, and it was kind of easy. They have YouTube videos on everything, so it's like if I need to do something specific, I can just watch a YouTube video. But yeah, Sprout Social, I was trained in that, and I feel like a lot of the social media like management softwares are kind of similar. So if you don't know exactly how to do it, you can kind of figure it out by like clicking around.
Totally. I completely agree. I think that, upskilling on the job a lot of the time is just a little basic Googling. I feel like a lot of people don't really understand that a lot of the times you kind of train yourself on the job. And a little bit adding on to that, Samantha asks, what experiences would you advise undergrads to have while in school if they want a career like yours? I know myself, I don't have much experience as a junior, so I was wondering what can be good while balancing school.
So I did have 2 internships while I was at DePaul. Both of those unpaid internships, which you might have to do. I definitely recommend that. It's a great way to get experience. Like you're actually at a company seeing how everything's done. And I can't recommend that enough. I mean, I would say outside of internships, like just being really immersed in social media, like paying attention, like I said, like what brands are doing and like what works for them is really important.
Totally. If you don't mind me asking, how did you go about getting those internships? Did you just find them online or did you have personal connections?
Um, so in my like PR classes, I'm pretty sure it was required to have an internship. So I think we were definitely helped a little bit getting those. Um, but you know, I did do a lot of my own searching. One of those was at Music Garage, which, you know, I did like social media coordinating there, and I had an interest in music. So I looked into that, like what in the Chicago area had internships. And then another one was at Joe Chicago, which was a small PR agency. And, you know, I also saw they were offering internships. So you can get just kind of search like, okay, uh, Chicago internships, and you can kind of see what appeals to you. And it's, you know, I had to go through like a process with both of them, like an interview, to see if I was a fit. But, you know, definitely recommend that.
Totally. Georgia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, kind of around the same thing. I had like 3 internships throughout college. One of them,
Wow, that's a lot.
yeah, one of them was a personal connection of someone I knew who she just needed a lot of social media help, so I kind of helped her through that. And then the other two were me applying on LinkedIn, just kind of looking up Chicago internships, kind of similar thing.
Totally. What I really like about both of your stories is that they're really aligned with your interests and also with like personal connections that you have. I noticed that you're really utilizing either areas of interest or your personal network to really expand your own experience while also helping other people out. Unpaid internships can be challenging, financially speaking, but do you feel like they served you well in terms of experience?
I think so. I mean, of course, I think we all prefer if they're paid, but you're paid with the experience. So,
Right. Yeah.
um, I mean, I definitely am really thankful for those internships. Like, I still have connections of people that I worked with. Like, it was a great way to network and gain experience. So,
Totally. I just wanted to do a quick time check before we keep hopping on the question train. We are halfway through already. So y'all in the chat, if you would like to continue asking questions, get them in before it's too late. Moving on to Claire, who asks, with content creation, do you get to do some more experimental stuff, come up with original ideas, maybe try to start trends, stuff like that? Or is it mostly just following trends?
I would say it's both. I'll have like an idea that I want to do, and then I'll get whoever I need to get involved into that. And then the other part is like me seeing a trend and being like, oh, you can totally do this and it works for our brand. So yeah, it's kind of 50-50.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like, it's 50-50. I definitely want to experiment with stuff, see if it works. But,
Mhm.
you know, if there is a trend, I'm going to jump on it.
Totally. And an add-on question that I have to that is, do you have a trend that you really love? And do you have a trend that you really hate?
I mean, I like to be funny on, especially on like Twitter. Like if there's a certain meme going around, I like to just jump on that meme. And that's my favorite thing to do because that always gets like a lot of good engagement. But I need to think about trends I don't like. Georgia, if you want to go, I
Yeah, I don't know. I know a trend that I feel like it's not from like a brand perspective, I would say, but I can't stand when people on like there's a trend on TikTok where they just like share tweets or they share funny things that they see and then they just like repeat them and share them. And I'm like, okay, it's just like the same thing as just me going on Twitter. Um, but as for trends I like, I would say ones that are like, I don't know, like personalized, like if people share funny stories in a funny way, that always makes me laugh. But yeah.
Totally. Since you said that you spend a lot of time also sharing and coming up with experimental original content, um, do you like have one that you're really proud of, or do you have one that you thought it was gonna like be the next huge thing and then it ended up like failing spectacularly? Like yeah, I would love to hear what that ideation process sounds like.
Yeah, I said that I wanted to try doing more reels, and so I kind of just came up with like doing kind of like a unboxing, I guess, but like showing off the products in that way, and putting them in front of the camera, setting them down. Like it was pretty simple, but that ended up working like really well. And so I was like, okay, after this, we should do a lot more like lifestyle, like showing video of the product, because that is a lot more engaging than just like a photo.
Totally. Georgia, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I would say kind of with reels, it's been hit or miss for me as well. Like once I'll put reels together in like 5 seconds and they'll like take off. And I just don't understand. I sit there and I'm like, I don't get it because I put this together in 5 seconds. And then I'll have like thought out ideas where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so funny. And it just bombs. And then yeah. So I think it's like sometimes you just, I don't know, you don't even know.
Right. Neely, I see you nodding. Do you feel that frustration?
That's definitely true. I mean, something you think is gonna go viral just like falls flat. I mean, that's bound to happen.
Right, totally. Brooke messaged this to me privately, but I'm going to ask it because I feel like that's what Brooke would want. Over the years, how do you stay in trend and finding new methods for marketing and understanding the audience? Oh, that's a wonderful question. Thank you, Brooke. I'll copy and paste it into the everyone chat so that everyone can read
Yeah.
it too.
Thinking about this one. That is a good question. I mean, as I said, I use social media a lot, and you just have to stay on top of it, I guess. Like, just like using it personally. I mean, I recommend that, there's definitely been times where I'm like, I want a social media break, but I'm like, no, wait, I need to like stay focused. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Like,
No, you're
it helps to understand the audience when like you are the audience. Like, I'm really passionate about CrunchyRoll, so I feel like I know kind of what the audience wants. I feel like I know what they want to see. So it definitely helps to work for a brand that you love and you're really passionate about, and like you would buy the products yourself.
Totally. Do you get an employee discount? Just curious.
Yes.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's like 25% off with free shipping.
Oh wow. Oh wow, free shipping. That's how you know it's real. Georgia, do you have something to add?
Yeah, kind of around the same thing, like using it personally so you can stay up on trends. Like talking to other people in the industry is really helpful. Yeah, and then within our own audience, we kind of like to be trendsetters and like to use different types of technology that's newer. So I think if you use it personally, you kind of catch on to like what's going to be the next app or what's going to be, the next trend, that kind of thing.
Totally, yeah. I mean, especially with the rise of TikTok now, more and more, it's less of a question of like what the next trend is going to be and more where the next trend is going to be. And Neely, I feel like you said something really interesting earlier, that I totally forgot about. Maybe it'll come back to me.
I
In the
said,
meantime, yes?
oh, I think I know. I said like to know the audience, you kind of
Yes.
like have to be the audience.
Yes, totally. Having that personal sense of like attunement with the brand and also your career in general. It's coming back to me now. I wanted to ask about work-life balance, especially because on social media, I feel like a lot of people who don't work in social media go on social media when they're not working. And so I'm curious as to how you navigate your own personal relationship to social media, as well as your professional one.
I mean, it helps that I am super passionate about anime. So, I do have my own separate Twitter account, but I'm always talking about anime and like watching anime. So I feel like mine might be a unique case where like my professional life and my personal interests like are kind of combined. Um, but I try not to like, well, I feel like I am guilty of like past my work hours, I'll check on the Crunchyroll accounts, but you kind of have to be mindful like not to always do that, and you should give yourself a break from that.
Totally. Georgia?
Yeah, I agree. I think in terms of like work-life balance, like boundaries are super important. And like I give myself an hour where I'm like, I'm not gonna look at any social media because I'm just like I can't scroll anymore, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think giving myself a chance to like not be on it, it makes me, more creative and,
Mhm.
want to do it more rather than kind of just sitting there and keep scrolling and always be on it.
Totally.
But yeah, just kind of being like, I need to take a break.
Mhm. What do you two do when you're not working?
Watch anime.
I am sensing a trend. Well, what are you watching lately?
um, I've been watching One Piece, which is 1,000 episodes, so I think I have my work cut out for me there.
Amazing.
I watch a lot of reality TV because I'm like, oh, I don't have to like think about anything else other than like other people's lives. And it helps me to be like, oh, okay, cool. I can take a
Totally.
break.
Yeah. I'm very excited personally about this new season of the Great British Bake Off. I like when episodes come
Ooh.
out every Friday. I get a little treat at the end of the week. I'm also watching Hacks on HBO. I highly recommend it. It's very good.
Mm.
Moving on. Jasmine asks, what advice do you have for people who don't have much prior experience trying to find internships, how to stand out?
I mean, I think being really passionate is important. My first internship was at Music Garage, so I did have experience like just in jobs I had had, like being a server or a hostess. So if you've had any job experience at all, you can use that to your advantage. Like, if you were a waitress, you might have really good people skills. Like you can use anything you've done to kind of boost, um, kind of leverage yourself. And,
Mhm.
since I was really passionate about music, I could kind of talk about like the music industry and like
Mhm.
what music I like. So definitely you can use that to your advantage.
Absolutely. For everyone here, Neely is referring to transferable skills, which are skills that can transfer from one job to another. For example, people skills from serving can translate well to social media, where you're doing the same kind of customer service, just in kind of a different platform and in a different form. There are lists of transferable skills literally everywhere on the internet. You can just Google them and they will show up. I highly recommend bringing them into your job interviews, into your resume writing as a best practice. Georgia, do you have anything to add in terms of advice?
Yeah, along with that, I worked as a lifeguard and social media or a swim instructor.
A
And
lifeguard for social media. I wish we had
yeah.
one. I wish we had one. Mid cancellation, you can get airlifted out.
But along with that, it was like me explaining skills to people all day or like just communicating with people about things. So I kind of used that to my advantage to be like, here's an example of when I could communicate an issue where I had to like have a conflict, that kind of
Mhm.
thing, to use as kind of interview answers as well. Yeah, as like kind of what you were saying before.
Mhm.
Um, sorry, I forgot where I was going with that. Yeah, just being like in internships, I think just being really passionate, and being honest about what you want in a career is really
Mhm.
helpful. In a lot of my internships, they were like, we want to help you get a job and we want to
Mhm.
know what you want out of this. So that was really
Mhm.
nice for me to be like, this is what I want,
Mhm.
and like how can you help me, that kind of thing.
Do you have an example?
So I did social media for a nonprofit, and my boss she was just a great person. She was just like, I want to help you get a job. Like, what
Mhm.
can I do? And I was like, I need to make content and I need to know if I like it. So we did this whole video project where I got to film people and like counselors and kind of talk to them about their experience. And it just helped me kind of define that that was the career that I wanted.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's really wonderful that both of you got to explore and really find your passion early and find careers that it like complemented your identity as opposed to clashed with it as you grew in your careers. And kind of along a similar vein, Samantha asks if you were hiring someone today for an entry-level position, maybe in your team, what would be the most critical factors influencing your choice of one candidate over another? Georgia, I would like for you to start, and while you're doing that, I'm going to turn a light on because it's getting dark in this room.
Ooh. I would say it's kind of a like couple factors for me. I think obviously like communication, like can I, get along with this person in terms of like content creation? Like, do we like the same things so that when we do have to come up with ideas, we're going to kind of be on the same page. I would say trust is huge in social media. From my experience, like if you're going to hand an account to someone, you want to put your faith behind that person, that they're not going to do anything that shows the brand poorly. I get a lot of trust in my job. So I think it's great that I have that and I would want that in someone else.
Totally. Neely, before I ask you for feedback as well, I just wanted to add another part to this question. How does it feel to be on the other side of doing job interviews? And from that perspective, what advice would you have for these students, these alumni who are on the other side of the table or the other side of the Zoom room?
I will say I've never like been in a position where I've interviewed a person or hired them. But if I were doing that, I would say I definitely want them to show their passion for the brand. Do they love it, or is this just like a job to them? I think that gives someone a lot of leverage. And I don't think like just anyone like could do the social media job. Like you want to know that they really know the brand, that they love it, that they're gonna put their passion into it. And I also want to see that they have like some good ideas. Maybe I could ask them like, what are some ideas you have to like improve our social media? I don't want someone to just take like your everyday cookie cutter approach. Like I want to know that someone can like think outside of the box. I think that's pretty important. And so your question was on the other side, if I have tips, like as the interviewer.
Right, and also just responding to Samantha's question, what do you feel like would be a critical factor making you choose one person over another?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I said, just seeing that they can kind of come up with really cool ideas. I think that's important.
Totally. Georgia, have you ever hired someone or been in
I
the interview?
No, I haven't been in that position personally, but
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have actually for a lot of professional staff here at the Career Center and also for student employees. And I can definitely agree with what both of you are saying. Personally, a resume says a lot about a person, but I feel like being able to speak with them and have them really showcase their skills as well as their personality, finding that kind of good fit for a team, especially if the individuals hosting the interview are the ones that are going to be either direct managers or people in their team, you really want to show that you're someone who can get along well and fit in. Um, and yeah, I feel like both of you have really good points about having original ideas, but having a lot of passion for the mission of the place that you're in. And Brooke is asking, is there intel if, ooh, interesting way of spelling intel. Is there intel if commercial companies will start podcasts? Wow Bow and Crunchyroll, are there podcasts in the pipeline?
Not for us yet.
I think Crunchyroll does have podcasts. I'm on the ecom team, so I don't do anything with those, but I'm pretty sure there are some. There's a lot of people in the industry that have a lot to say. So yeah, I think it's been working for us. I'm not really sure.
Totally. And an add-on that I have to that is like do you quietly, just personally have any predictions for like the kinds of platforms that are going to be big in the future, or like overall social media trends for how the internet is going to influence our lives moving forward?
I
I guess it's
mean,
kind of a big question.
yeah, so the Crunchyroll store doesn't have its own TikTok, but I will put content on the main TikTok
Mhm.
sometimes. And, you know, I think TikTok is ever growing. It's really big, and I think a lot more companies are starting to use that. So I do think that that will just continue to grow a lot.
Totally.
Yeah, I would, yeah, along with that, I think personalized content and trust in brands is becoming a lot bigger. And I think it'll
Mm,
grow a lot. People want to know where they're spending their money a lot more and, the background of the company, and just kind of seeing behind the scenes rather than just the product.
I
totally.
just want to introduce my cat.
Whoa!
Oh.
Hey, pal. Do we get a name?
So funny story, her name is Yuzu, which is also Crunchyroll's mascot's cat's name. But that
Aw.
wasn't planned. That wasn't planned. So
Yuzu as in the Japanese citrus?
yes, yes.
Delicious. Very floral. I'm half Japanese, so
Oh, cool.
yeah. All right, last question before I think I'm going to hand it over. If anybody else in the chat wants to have the last question, drop it in the chat now. I'll ask it after this one. What do you wish that people knew about your job?
I have a good answer to this.
Okay,
Um,
go for it.
I I feel like people think that social media is an easy job, and it is not. There is a lot of work that goes into it. I feel like when I was in college, like I was like, oh yeah, like social media would be a breeze. But it's a lot of hard work. So I think you should just keep that in mind. Like there's a lot of scheduling you have to do, stay on top of trends. Like it's a lot. So yeah, keep that in mind.
Totally. Georgia?
That was my exact answer too. I think a lot of people are like, oh, you just post once a day. I've had people be like, oh, you just scroll through Instagram all day. And I'm like, that's not what it
No.
is. Like, and I think people think that content planning and content creation is very quick and easy because, they'll do it on their personal channel. But I think when it's for a brand or you have to constantly be on it all day, it takes a lot more time than people think.
Totally. And I think to wrap us all up, Samantha is asking, what's the typical entry-level salary range for someone in this field?
Um, I mean, I feel like it's hard to say. Uh, it depends. It depends on a lot of factors, I think. I'm gonna go with probably like 40 to 50K.
Totally.
Yeah.
Georgia, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say about the same.
Yeah. According to Glassdoor, the average salary for a social media manager in the United States is $48,931 a year. Very specific statistic, but there it is. So yeah, Neely and Georgia, thank you so much for being here and spending an hour of your Thursday evening with us. Everybody in the chat, if you could send them a quick thank you, that would be wonderful. If either of you would be willing, I would love if you could share your LinkedIn URLs or your personal websites, so that these wonderful students and alumni can connect with you. And other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day.